Today, we are putting a massive, impending event in the blockchain space right under the microscope. We're going to take a highly structured, super analytical approach to break down a looming technical and really ideological standoff that legitimately threatens to shake the foundations of the world's largest decentralized network. There is absolutely a storm brewing here, and understanding its mechanics is absolutely crucial.
Okay, let's dive into this, because August 7th, 2026 is the exact date the network faces an existential collision. Seriously, mark it on your calendars. This isn't just some arbitrary day we picked out of a hat. It's a hard, real-world deadline where two totally conflicting visions for the network's future are going to slam right into each other.
To make sure we thoroughly unpack this threat assessment, here's our roadmap. We'll hit the August 2026 deadline, look at core versus knots, analyze the game theory standoff, map out 3 possible scenarios, and wrap up with the 2017 block size war. All right, Section 1, the August 2026 deadline, a 10-week window to protocol fracture. The stakes here are truly astronomical. We are looking at a critical countdown. A proposed protocol change known as BIP 110 has kicked off a sequence of events that could see total consensus fracture completely. Within just a tight 10-week timeframe leading up to that August date, the network could literally cleave into 2 completely independent versions. To understand how we ended up on this precarious ledge, we really need to understand the 2 sides driving the dispute.
Moving right along to Section 2, core versus knots, the ideological divide.
At the heart of this war is a very specific technical element, and that is arbitrary data. So what is that? It's basically non-monetary information. Think images, text documents, that sort of thing, embedded directly into the blockchain. And here is where the ideology splits perfectly in 2. One side of the community sees the inclusion of this data as an innovative utility, something that expands the network's capabilities. The other side? They view it strictly as network spam that clogs up a system meant only for monetary value transfer. I mean, they argue, who wouldn't want to permanently store a JPEG of a cartoon monkey on a global financial ledger, right?
And this brilliantly illustrates how these 2 philosophies manifest directly in the software. Over on the core side, we have Bitcoin Core version 30, which dropped in October 2025. This is the majority software, and it practically eliminated the limits on arbitrary data, taking it from a previous limit of 83 bytes to virtually infinite. On the flip side, we have Bitcoin Knots. This alternative software heavily restricts arbitrary data to ensure pure monetary use. And what's super vital to note here is that Knots is not some fringe movement. It's currently supported by nearly 20% of the network.
So how exactly are the Knots developers fighting back against this infinite data approach? Well, they're deploying the BIP 110 proposal. BIP 110 is a strict soft fork designed to encode their restrictive limits directly into the protocol. And because it's a more restrictive rule, it creates this fascinating asymmetrical rejection mechanism. The majority software, Bitcoin Core, will happily accept the blocks produced by Knots. But, and this is their main weapon, Knots nodes will flat out reject core blocks if they contain excess arbitrary data.
Which naturally brings us to Section 3, the game theory standoff between node operators and miners. This is where the mechanics turn into a high-stakes Mexican standoff. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the financial risk matrix it maps out. On August 7, users supporting BIP 110 are going to configure their node software to reject blocks with arbitrary data. Their incentive is simple: force miners to comply with their restrictive consensus. But look at the miners. Their incentive is to mine blocks with arbitrary data to collect more network fees. However, if they mine a block that the nodes reject, they risk losing the massive electrical and financial investments spent to create that block in the first place.
You can probably feel the incredible tension right now. Explicit node support for BIP 110 currently sits very, very low, only about 2 to 3%. On top of that, no large mining pool has formally positioned itself yet. But game theory tells us something absolutely crucial here. If node signaling grows enough, large mining pools are going to be financially cornered. They'll be strongly incentivized to suddenly adopt the restrictive BIP 110 proposal just to ensure their blocks achieve full 100% network acceptance. That means the entire network's rules could shift beneath our feet almost overnight. It's essentially a multi-billion-dollar game of chicken.
So how does this actually play out? Section 4, 3 possible scenarios. Let's analyze the probability matrix.
When we actually run the numbers, the probability matrix is quite stark. We have a massive 95% probability of rejection and death, where the proposal just straight up fails. But right next to it, a terrifyingly thin 5% slice representing a catastrophic network split. A clean, smooth adoption that currently sits at effectively 0% probability right now.
Let's impartially look at those first two scenarios. Scenario 1, clean adoption, would basically happen if node signaling rises drastically, effectively forcing the miners to accept the new rule. This resolves the uncertainty, sure, but it sets a wild precedent that a minority of users can force a consensus change. Scenario 2 is the quiet death, which has that huge 95% likelihood. Voluntary support stays low, the deadline passes without any real enforcement, and the network stays entirely on core rules. Miners naturally prefer this outcome because the arbitrary data generates transactions, which of course maximizes their fee revenue. So the crucial point is the existential danger hiding in that final 5% tail risk scenario. If a significant portion of miners adopts BIP 110 while the majority stays on core, we get a permanent network split. Think about what that means. This would force exchanges to list two totally independent assets, traditional Bitcoin and Bitcoin 110. It is a catastrophic risk that would heavily damage the asset's reputation and severely fragment network liquidity. The value and stability of the network as you know it would just be thrown into absolute chaos. To prove this 5% risk isn't just a theoretical exercise, we turn to our final section, the 2017 block size war, the ghosts of consensus past. Let's move to and see how this builds a truly chilling historical parallel. Back in the summer of 2017, large miners wanted bigger blocks, while individual users running home nodes fiercely opposed it. Just before their deadline, the nodes leveraged updates, specifically BIP 91 and BIP 148, to practically force miners into an intermediate solution before they started invalidating blocks. It was a brutal, brutal game of chicken. And post-fork, the dissident faction ended up executing a hard fork anyway, birthing a completely separate asset known as Bitcoin Cash. And this single number proves the devastating consequences of being on the wrong side of that fork. Today, Bitcoin Cash retains less than 1% of the original chain's market capitalization. It's a sobering reminder that when consensus fractures, the financial fallout is ruthless and it's permanent. Which brings us to the ultimate profound question we are left with as the BIP 110 deadline approaches. On August 7th, 2026, when push comes to shove over arbitrary data, who will truly hold the power in decentralized networks? Is it the massive industrial miners who actually build the blocks, or the individual node operators who validate them? We've systematically unpacked the mechanics, the factions, and the probabilities today. Now we just have to sit back and watch the game theory play out. Thank you so much for diving deep with me today. Keep observing and keep learning.